That was not a good formula. So let's do a U-turn. Let's think about some ways. As a K-1-2 educator, we're taught to, when you talk to children, tell them what to do, not what not to do. So you don't say, don't bite on that pencil. You say, could you put that pencil down and pick up that crayon? Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about what to do. Some transformational ways. I think of transformation as the opposite of status quo. Embrace your own ignorance and biases. Your decays. What you don't know, you don't know. Embrace that. It's okay. We were all socialized around this. We've all inherited some great things in this culture and some not so great things. And I would suggest that a habit of denial and ignorance that really, really negatively impacts people is in there. Number 2, tolerate and manage your own discomfort. I've heard the word tolerance for years. By the way, I was on diversity committees for 25 years before I knew whiteness was a thing or that racism was systemic in the way I talked about here. And when I heard the word tolerance, I was like, that is messed up. And if I'm going to tolerate you, how does that feel? I am going to tolerate you this afternoon. Isn't that awful? No. So I want to do a U-turn on that and say, it's about, I have to tolerate myself. When I hear that imperfect grammar and I start saying, I have to say, oh, you idiot. Look at what you're doing. Stop that and listen to this person. Or somebody says something that clashes with my belief system. The first thing I want to say is, that's ridiculous. In my head, of course. But actually, if I can sit with that discomfort and suspend my own reality for a little bit, I'll probably learn something. And when somebody flat out calls me out on something, points something out to me that I've missed, it still hurts. I still get a burst of adrenaline. But I'm learning that I'll survive it. 3, explore what is at stake for whom. So when white communities do not work with one another to educate one another and learn how to talk skillfully and fluently about race, racism, whiteness, who pays the ultimate price? It's our fellow Americans of color who are still living with racial bias being enacted on them. This is what we see with all the police brutality. There is a huge problem in this country right now of mass incarceration of black bodies. Our bodies are being used for a profit. I'm using the word bodies, inspired in part by Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me. But black men, especially, are being wrongfully incarcerated or incarcerated for ridiculous terms for tiny, having a small bag of pot, for instance, or not having your turn signal as an example. We saw with Sandra Bland. So if white people and white communities aren't taking this on, we're upholding the status quo, even when we're good people with good intentions. The only thing, I can't remember I'm about to quote someone and I don't know who I'm quoting. The only thing required for evil to continue is for good people to do nothing.
Gandhi.
That was Gandhi, thank you. And here's another thing. What's at stake in white silence is what I just said. Here's another thing. Raise your hand if you've been in a situation where broaching the topic of race or racism has made you so nervous you could barely talk. Couldn't say what you wanted to say. You want to interrupt a joke, something, okay? It's a huge national epidemic. White people report on this all the time. I'm so afraid I'm going to say something stupid or ignorant. I don't say anything at all. There's a real thing about getting out of your comfort zone. There's a learning zone. You can get out of your comfort zone enough that it's really productive, and you can go so far that you get tricked into flight or fight, and you may never want to be near a conversation again. And so it's a real thing that white people get tricked into flight or fight. They are terrified of saying something wrong or ignorant. And yet, when we compare to what comfort zones and learning zones and danger zones look like for our brothers and sisters of color across America, The danger zone is not ego. The danger zone is the difference between getting promoted, or if you're a family of color, you go to talk to your white teacher or administration about something when you feel like your child's being held to a lower standard. What you're risking is that the school will retaliate and double down on your child. I hear this story all the time. And of course, now and especially through history, for a person of color to speak their truth has meant a matter of life and death. So when we are in racially mixed settings and we're trying to engage in conversations, or when we're in a community and we're trying to work through issues of racial inequity, I ask white people to remember that all that's at stake is ego, while the person sitting next to you might be worried about their job or their life. And for me, that's been an inspiration. That has given me courage. It's emboldened me to get out of my comfort zone. So here I am. I'm comfortable. I'm a nice white lady who's talking to you about racism. And I think it's interesting that my book has taken off. I think my book is good and it's interesting and it's resonating in part with white people because I'm telling a white story. And I also think a big part of it is because it's comfortable to hear this from a white person. How would it feel? These are 6 of my colleagues. How would it feel to have one of these people up here talking to you about redlining or Indian boarding schools? I find that white people are much more comfortable talking about this with white people, and yet at a certain point, we need to get out of our comfort zones and have people who don't look like us, who are actually living on the more painful side of the racism equation every day. And then when that happens, when you invite that person here, notice the difference. Notice how much discomfort might come up for you just because of who's delivering the message. This is a total paradigm shift. Seeing a town like Winchester as racist and full of racism. What I want to leave you with is this, which is education is learning what you didn't even know you didn't know. So that's all I have for my remarks. We'll move into Q&A.